everyone, on this channel I have an old video about how I VTube. A lot of stuff has changed since then, so I wanted to give a bit of an update. I have a bunch of hardware and software, so I've tried to reorganize this video several times, and forgive me if I ramble. The structure of the video I've settled on is this. A brief overview of the PCs, how I VTube, the gaming PC in depth, and then the streaming PC in depth. Okay, so first let's talk about my PC setup, because I'll usually talk about the streaming PC and the gaming PC, and you probably have no idea what this means. I made this diagram to hopefully help to try to explain what's going on. I run a 2-PC setup, so the first PC I want to talk about is the gaming PC. This has 3 main responsibilities: send the gameplay to the streaming PC, send the audio to the gawr, and run virtual motion capture for the full body tracking. Hey everybody, Swolecat from the editing booth here. I was having a lot of problems with virtual motion capture on the gaming PC. Some games would render to the monitor as well as the VR headset, and this caused a lot of performance issues. So now I'm running VMC on a laptop. Yay for 3 PC setups, I guess. I don't count the gawr as a PC, but I really want to mention it here. If you're thinking about doing a 2-PC setup, I would highly recommend it because it really simplifies the audio setup. The other PC that I'm going to be talking about a lot is what I call the streaming PC. This broadcasts to Twitch, runs a lot of VTubing software, and it also runs production software like the Board or StreamPod. With that overview out of the way, let's talk about how I VTube. I run 3 separate instances of VSeeFace every single stream. One for my main avatar, one for SwoleBay, and one for SwoleKit. I use my custom VSeeFace settings switcher to make sure that the settings, cameras, hotkeys are all correct for every single avatar. Nice. I'll post a link to the GitHub where you guys can download this if you want to use it, but just beware, it's not a looker. I'm not going to focus on SwoleBay or SwoleKit since I've already made several videos about how to set those up, but let's talk about everything else. VSeeFace requires 2 things to work: a camera and a microphone. For the camera, I'm using a Logitech Brio. I really like how it has a wide angle lens, but I'm not sure with my iPhone and my full body tracking actually how much it does anymore. For the audio, I have a separate AT2040 that is hooked up to an audio interface that goes directly to the streaming PC. I don't use the gawr because it's going to have gameplay audio, possibly Discord audio, as well as my mic. That's not ideal for VSeeFace or closed captioning. If the avatar I'm using has blend shapes, I use an iPhone XS with iFacial mocap. This is mounted onto my body with a custom helmet that I made that holds the iPhone and a Vive tracker. I will probably be making a video about this sometime soon. I think iPhone tracking is great, but there is an Android alternative out there. In general, I would say phone facial tracking is probably the biggest upgrade you can get as a VTuber, and I would highly recommend it. On my chest, I have the Leap Motion for finger tracking. This really hasn't changed since the first video, so I'm not really going to go into it that much. Finally, I have a Valve Index setup hooked up to my gaming PC. I have 10 Vive trackers all across my body. I've already mentioned the helmet for the head. For the wrist and the waist, I use this Kiwi belt system that I got on Amazon. For my elbows and my knees, I will use a set of knee and elbow pads that I drilled a hole in, and then I threw in a 1.4-20 screw to attach the Vive trackers. This is pretty comfy. For my feet, I use the EOZ foot straps that you can get on the Tundra Lab store. Once again, these are pretty comfortable. All of these Vive trackers require a USB dongle. So I have this mega USB hub that has 10 slots that all of the dongles go through. I'd like to get the Tundra Labs mega dongle so I could have a lot less of these. Apparently that also improves the tracking performance, but I haven't gotten that yet. The last part of the VTuber salad is Vtuber Plus. I use this so people can throw stuff at me. Hopefully I can get a couple of custom effects soon, but that's pretty much it for VTubing. I have an instance of OBS running that I use to capture gameplay, and then I do a full screen preview to the capture card in the streaming PC. I find this approach lets me not have to use display capture, and I get G-Sync and 144 Hz on my gaming monitor, and the stream is just fine. For console games, I have an Elgato HD60 hooked up. If the console is really old, I have a RetroTink 5X that can handle that stuff. I also have a V1 Stream Deck set up for changing scenes, incrementing counters, doing speedrun splits, and muting Discord. I also have a Stream Deck pedal set up for the speedrun splits or incrementing counters so I don't have to take my hands off the controller like a pro gamer.
Smoke weed every day.
On the gaming PC, I have 3 monitors set up. The left monitor is the stream manager, the middle monitor is whatever I'm doing, and the right is OBS so I can monitor and make sure that's showing the right thing.
Stream Deck, analyzer, fucking moderator stance, sound filter, 6 monitors, pedals, drums, gaming guitar controllers, 6 consoles.
Finally, we have the monster streaming PC. It does pretty much everything else that I have not listed. Probably easiest to start with the hardware, so let's do that. I'm not going to go over the Vtuber stuff, but we'll talk about everything else. So I have another monitor that is above one of the gaming PC monitors, so I can quickly look over and make sure OBS is doing the correct thing. I have a receipt printer hooked up. If you whisper me a message and you're a sub and it starts with !print, it'll print on this printer. Hey, editing Swolecat again. I added a Anchor webcam to the receipt printer so we can see the message as it gets printed out. If you want me to make a video about how I use multiple webcams in my OBS setup, let me know in the comments. Next up is the chair shaker. I designed and 3D printed a mount for my chair that holds 2 tactile transducers and a small amp. The amp has an aux cord that goes to the streaming PC, and whenever somebody redeems channel points, a sound will play and it will shake my chair. In the VTuber section, I mentioned that I have a Logitech Brio hooked up to the streaming PC, but I also have a Logitech C920 hooked up for the desk cam. If I ever want to show like an IRL thing to people, I just kind of shove the stuff under there. Finally, I have 2 more Stream Decks and another Stream Deck pedal. I have a Stream Deck XL, which I use for pretty much everything. It'll change the scenes, it'll start up a bunch of programs, it'll run ads. I love this thing. The small one is just for VTuber expressions and camera angles, and then the pedal is for quick access to scenes that I use a lot, most notably the game scene, which shows the gaming PC, and the wait scene for when I'm just chatting. All right, on to software. I run a lot of software for the stream. Let's go from least complicated to most complicated. So the first one is Voicemeeter. I use Voicemeeter and several virtual audio cables to route stuff to Swolebay and SwoleKid, and also for the chair shaker. Next up is a newer addition, which is StreamerBot. I primarily use this to do voice-activated commands, like when I say woo or I say explosion and stuff shows up on stream, but I also use this for the chair rumble. Next up is something similar, but I think a little bit more mature, is Leorin Board 2. I primarily use this for more complicated effects, such as the lurk notification. I'm not going to go through VC-Face, the VC-Face setting switcher, VTuber Plus, the browsers, or AlterCam, but I do want to mention them here so you get an idea of how much software I am running on this computer. Lastly is the king, the goat, the heart of the operation, OBS. I have a lot of plugins set up for OBS, so I figured it would be good to go through them real quick right here. The Move Transition plugin I use to have Swolebay and SwoleKid pop up on the screen, but I also use it for dramatic zooms. Next up is the Freeze Filter plugin. I primarily use this to hold the frame for be right back and to be continued. I use the Gradient Source plugin for scenes like the Gendo scene where I want to have a gradient background. I use the OBS Shader Filter plugin a ton. This is for all of the crazy effects that you see going on. Sometimes I'll stack shaders on shaders. I really love this thing. The WebSocket plugin is super important to allow Leorin Board or StreamerBot to communicate directly with OBS. I'm not really going to go into the internals of how that works. Next up is Scale to Sound. I use this on like the trail scene where I speak and everything kind of vibrates. I made my goal rotator with a Source Switcher plugin. Andy Lippy has a great video on how to set this up. StreamFX has a lot of great features, but the one I use the most is the Source Mirror, because this will let me have a copy of a scene or a source, and I can apply my own settings to it. Next up is the transition table. So this lets me set specific transitions for certain scenes. For example, the Monkey Melee one will always do this transition. Lastly is the Vintage filter, which is just a really quick way of doing sepia or black and white. I'm not going to go into each scene, but I do want to mention that I run a lot of videos where it will be Business Cat or SwoleCat 1.0 or Swolebay in the background, so it looks like I'm in multiple places at once. I try to put a lot of production value into my streams, so I hope you guys all enjoy it. I'll see you around. Bye.